Okay, welcome to Power Transmission's bonus session on how to do basic drawings using PowerPoint or Google Slides. Now, in Google Slides, it's going to be slightly different, but exactly the same steps, just using slightly different mouse clicks and menu items. And we'll do that second. Let's start off with Microsoft PowerPoint. Some of you have it on your computers, some of you don't. You obviously will much prefer doing this on a computer. Trying to do it on an Android device is a little bit tedious and slow. So let's talk about this. First of all, let's talk about what we want to do. I want to show a picture of angle iron, right? 1.5 inch angle iron that's got a 1/4 inch flange. That means it looks like an L if you're looking down at the end of it. It's 1.5 inch high and 1.5 inch wide. So it's a very sloppy looking L with a 1/4 inch thickness for the flange. So the thickness of the angle itself is 1/4 inch. So what I want to do is cut off a 2-inch length of that and drill a hole in the middle of one of the flanges, and then tap that hole. So how do I do a drawing? Well, first thing, and some of you guys are already familiar with doing drawings, the first thing you want to do is show one side of this angle iron. So what I like to do is I go into my insert option, and I've got shapes as an available option insert, and I can pick a lovely rectangle, and then I just throw a rectangle out there. Now, I like to use color coding for certain types of materials. So what I will do is I will right-click on the object, in this case, the rectangle. I'm going to make the outline always black. I always have a black outline. And then I'm going to make my fill a light blue. I like to use light blue for aluminum. Okay, I use light gray for steel. When you print them, the light blue and light gray don't really show up. So from a printing perspective, it doesn't really matter what color you pick as long as it's very light colored. But now I've got the rectangle. This is my flanged one side of my angle iron. So I said I wanted a 1.5 inch angle iron. That means this, if I look at it from the side, it should be 1.5 inches high. So how do I make this block 1.5 inches high? So I right click on it, and I see down on the bottom here an option that says size and position. By right clicking on there and going down to size and position, I get a pop-up. It's actually a side pop on my PowerPoint that shows me the height and width of that object on the PowerPoint slide. In this case, I can see it's 2.5 inches high, right? And I can see it's 5.3 inches wide. So I want it to be 1.5 inches high because it's a 1.5 inch angle iron, and I want it to be 2 inches long. So I just type that in. So now I have an accurate view. Let's zoom in on this just a little bit more. I have an accurate view of my 1.5 inch by 2 inch side view of my flange. So the next thing you're going to learn is how to do the actual measurements. On every drawing, you need to show the measurements of the object. So what we always do is we put our lines in to show where that measurement starts and where that measurement ends. So let's put a line in to show that this is a 2-inch flange. So I'm going to go Insert, under Shapes. I'm going to click on Shapes, and I'm going to go under Lines to pick a basic line, okay? So now I'm drawing a line. So I'm going to start by drawing a line one tiny bit above the left side of this block and go up about 1/4 inch, right? Now I've got the first measurement point, but I don't want to stick to the line that defaulted. In this case, it's a blue line that's half a point thick. Now I still have my format shape box up here on the right. So I'm going to change my line color to black, and I'm going to make it a little bit thicker to be 1 point thick, 1 point thick. That way it'll show up better on the drawings. So if I click away from that object, I can see I've got a line right there. Now, rather than doing that all again, I'm going to select that line and I'm going to copy. I do a edit copy, or I'm sorry, it's home, copy, or I can just do Control C and then Control V to paste it. And I have another one of these lines that I can put over on the other side of that little drawing. I'm going to give you guys a couple seconds to catch up if you are trying to do this at home. Don't forget, you click on something so it shows up as highlighted with these little, the ends of the line are highlighted with these little circles. I do Control C to copy it and Control V to paste it. And then I can grab the center of that line and move it around. If I grab the ends of the line, let's just do Control C, Control V, and let's put this line down here. If I grab the end of the line, then I get this little angle symbol and I can change the line length. I can change its orientation. I can do anything I want to that line. But if I grab the middle of the line and drag it, then I can move it. So you have to be careful where you grab. But now that I've changed this line to horizontal orientation, let's use it over here to show the height of my box. Okay, and then I'm going to copy this, Control C, Control V, and grab the middle and move it to move up to the top of the box. Now, if you're using PowerPoint, you can see that PowerPoint lays down these little dotted lines to show where you are in reference to other objects on the PowerPoint, so that I know I'm directly in line with that other line because I see two little dotted lines on both sides of them, and I know I'm even with the very top of that box because I see a dotted line attached to the top of that box. So if I release it, now I've got lines that show the dimensions where I can draw in the dimension of the height of that flange, and I can draw in the dimension of the length of that flange. So, so let's draw in the little arrow that's required to show that you're measuring from that point to that point. So I'm going to go Insert, Shapes, and on the lines, I can see I've got an option for a double arrow line. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to put it in the center of this little measurement point, click once, and drag it over to the other measurement point and release it. But it's a blue arrow and it's thin, so I'm going to click on that arrow. I'm going to go to the color, change it to black, and I'll increase the thickness to 1 point. Now I've got a dimensional marker that shows that I'm measuring from that point to that point. Done. The last step in any measurement is to show the actual measurement. So I'm going to do that by entering a text box. So I'm going to go Insert, Shapes, Text Box, and drag a text box in right above that measurement point. Okay. Now this text box probably defaults to a size that's huge, big. That's everything in PowerPoint defaults to a large font size. So what I want to do is reduce the font size of this text box. So I go under Home, and I'll change the font to, I'll just leave it in default font, that's fine. But I'll change the size to 12 point. And I'm going to change the font color to black. So I can do all that underneath Font under your Home menu. So go to your Home menu tab, and then Font should have the option to change that. And once I've done all that, I can click back into my text box and then I will type in 2.0 inches. But it's left justified. I probably want to center justify it. So I will go back to my Home tab, and then I will, under the paragraph, select the centered paragraph, and it will center justify that 2-inch. So now I'm showing that the measurement from that side of this part to this side of the part is exactly 2 inches. And let me move it down a little closer to that line, because in good formatting approach, I want that measurement right up against my line. So there's no confusion about what that 2 inches really means. So now I'm done with that. So I want to now add the measurement for the left side. So rather than reproduce all those steps I just went through, I'm going to copy and paste and move it down. So I'm going to select my line, then I hold down my Shift key, and I select my 2 inches, that text box with 2 inches in it. That means I've got 2 objects selected. By holding down the Shift key and selecting, I can select multiple objects. Take your time to do that right. I'll do it again. So I select the first object by clicking in the middle of the line. Then I'm holding down the Shift key, and I'm selecting the second object, which is my 2 inches. Then I'm going to hold down my Control key, do a copy, that's a Control C, and then I hold down the Control key to do a Control V, which is paste. Boom. So now I've reproduced that whole line. But I've got a challenge, because that line is, I want a line that's vertical, not horizontal, right? So what I'm going to do is move this line up separately so that the left side of the arrow is in the middle of my mark for the beginning of the measurement. And then I'm going to grab the end, the other end, and swing it up and move it up to be the center of that line there. Don't worry if it's not perfectly centered. But by selecting this and using the arrow keys, I can do micro adjustments. By left arrow and right arrow, I will use micro adjustments to move it left and right. So now I've moved that line to go up and down. So now I do is I just grab the 2-inch mark and drop that next to the line. But this isn't a 2-inch measurement. I said it's a 1.5-inch flange. So I'm going to type in 1.5 inches. As you can see, I've got my drawing basically laid out. So I'm going to throw in a couple more features. First of all, this is an angle iron, right? An angle iron has, one side, if you look down at it, looks flat, but the other side has a piece of aluminum sticking out of it, sticking out the other side of this flat flange of the angle iron. So how do I show in my drawing that I've got a piece of aluminum sticking out the back of this? Well, it's a 1/4-inch piece of aluminum. So first of all, let's draw what the end view looks like real quick. So rather than recreate this shape again, I'm going to copy and paste the shape. So I do Control C, Control V. Now I've got another flange. I'm just going to set it right next to the first, but it's the wrong size because I want the end view only. So I need to change this to 1.5 by 1.5 because the end view of my angle iron is 1.5 by 1.5. So I'm going to go into my format shape options on the right where it says size and shape, which is this little box showing the dimensions. And I'm going to change my width to 1.5. All right. And all I had to do was change it over here, hit enter. And now my little shape on the right is automatically 1.5. But now I need to show how that flange really looks. So I'm going to take another box and create what I call an indicator cube. I'm going to set up these cubes so that anywhere I have a 1/4 inch measurement to use, I can use my little cube as an indicator. I want to change this into a little 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch cube. So to do that, I just go over here and go 0.25, 0.25. Now I've got a little 1/4 inch cube that I can copy and paste and put anywhere on my drawing as a easy way of setting up what the measurement really looks like. So the first thing I'm going to do is say, all right, I'm going to use a cube there. Now just hold on, you're going to see how I finish this, so don't worry. I'm going to copy, Control C, Control V, paste my cube, move another cube up here to that corner, and then copy, Control C, Control V, paste the cube, and move another cube down to that corner. So now I've got little indicator cubes set up in the corners of my 1.5 by 1.5 square. So now I'm ready for the magic. The magic here is to create the flange end view. To do that, I need to do a special kind of shape. So I'm going to go up under my insert bar, shapes, and I am going to use the option that says free form shape. It should be on your top bar. Always there should be a freeform shape on the top bar. If you don't see it there, you'll see it under lines where it'll show up as a freeform shape. Google also has a similar tool to this. So once I've clicked into that, now I'm going to start on one side of my flange and click there. And now I'm starting to draw. And I'm going to go to my other corner where my indicator cube is, click there. And I'm going to drag it up to the top. Where my other indicator cube is, click there, drag it over to the left. This begins the inside of my flange. Click there, drag it down, click there, drag out to the left. Make sure I keep nice and straight. That looks straight. No, it's not quite there. That's better. Click there. Okay. Oh crap, I had an extra click. I got to do it again. So let's do it one more time. Insert, multiform. So we're going to start here, drag it off to the left, click here, drag it up to the top, click here, drag it to there, click there, drag it down to this corner, click there, drag it out to this corner, click there, and drag it down to there. Okay? Once it completes, you should see your new end view visible. If I drag away my old object, which I had created by copy and paste, I should see my lovely end view of the flange visible. Okay, so now I've got an end view of the flange. Now here's a trick in drawings. You don't need to show how tall it is again. All you need to do is add in these little marks, copy and paste them, and slide out those little marks to say, all right, the bottom of this drawing is the same as the bottom of this drawing, and the top of this drawing is the same as the top of that drawing. So I'm assuming it's 1.5 inches high, but I do need to add the width. So I will drag and select this top measurement. I do Control C, Control V, and I'll just set this up here for now. Now here's another trick. I'm going to change this line to a 1.5 inch line by clicking on the line, going to my format shape, and changing the width to 1.5 inches. Now all I do is I use my arrow keys to drag this over so it's on right on the edge, and I move my little 2 inches to the center and I modify it to 1.5. I did that pretty quick, but it is just repeating things we've already done. Then I'll drag this whole thing up and over until it's positioned, showing now that the width of that flange is actually 1.5 inches. Okay, so I'm going